Welcome to Stay Tuned. Welcome, everyone. Did you enjoy the concert? Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, we're thrilled that you're here, and we just get a moment to talk with our wonderful concertmaster slash soloist this afternoon. And I just have to say, being here, this is my 8th season with the Fresno Philharmonic, and working with Stephanie has been a complete joy. And to feature her as a soloist in that piece that you chose, she chose this piece, by the way. We'll talk about that. It was really special for all of us on stage, and for me especially. So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you. Is this on? It is on. Okay, hello. Thank you.
Yes. So tell us why you chose this piece.
Well, actually, this piece was not on my radar. I had never heard of it. I love Respighi, and I love his 3 big famous tone poems, that are set in Rome. But an Italian-American conductor last year was my last year at the University of Nevada, Reno, and he said that he'd like to feature me with the orchestra, and he said, "Do you know Poema Autunnale?" I said, what's that? And he said, "Autumn Poem" by Respighi. And so I said, I'll take a listen. And so I listened to a gorgeous recording online that you can hear by, her name is Julia, looked like Julia Fisher, fabulous violinist, and I just fell in love with this piece. I didn't realize how hard it was. But I said yes. So I got to play it a year ago with some of my students who were actually in the orchestra in my section today. And then I suggested 2 pieces to Ray, Schubert Concertstück, which is right up my alley, piece of cake, or the Respighi, and she chose the Respighi. And I just told her when I came off stage today that a month before this date, I seriously considered calling her and saying, could we change the program? Because this piece, I still can't play this piece yet. But luckily I didn't do that, and I kept working, and I could kind of play it tonight.
Yes, so. It was brilliant, yes. And I think Respighi is such a great orchestrator, and so really working around the violin and the colors in the orchestra, it was a little tricky to put together, but I don't know if you noticed, but there were constant notes that she was playing, that 2 notes at a time. We call them double stops, right? And basically every note in the piece is a double stop.
I mean, really, I think there might be 12 bars that are just a melody, and I like those just melodies, but most of it is double stops, or you're doing these harmonics and flying. It's very pyrotechnical, actually.
Tell us how you practice double stops. I mean, it's really difficult to get them in
Yeah,
tune.
because you got to be listening to both pitches, right? So I use a tuner, and I have to say that first shift in that piece, I must have practiced that 10,000 times. What is that? The number 10,000? Then you can play it with an F sharp tuner, because it's just a half step shift, but then you've got the other finger playing a whole step shift, and so it was hard. But I'm so glad I did it. I'm so glad I learned it, because I think it's a beautiful piece and nobody knows it. I mean, all my violinist friends, they had never heard of this piece, and I'm hoping that now everybody, all the violinists in the sections, will go back to their friends and say, "You got to hear this piece and you got to learn it, because it's very good."
And the fact that she came out and played the Bartok after she played the concerto. I mean, kudos to you. That's not an easy piece to come and play after you've done a concerto. And do you do that often? I know you play a lot of chamber music, but how do you switch gears from soloist to concertmaster?
Well, I will say it's a lot scarier to play as a soloist, because I don't do it every day, like soloists who we import to play with us. But
especially playing within your colleagues. Does that add a little pressure?
No, I feel very supported. When I was in San Antonio for 13 years as concertmaster, I was very blessed, and every single year I got to play, they asked me to play a concerto. So I learned a lot of repertoire that way. And it was scary, but it was good for me. Of course, they had 16 pairs of classicals, so it was easier to just, put in the concertmaster. But there was something I was going to say about the whole thing, which I can't remember now. But.
Well, switching gears to be a concertmaster.
Well, I was telling some friends backstage that the first time I played with San Antonio, I had a very beautiful dress that I wore for both performances. And so I came out the first night, and all my colleagues smiled at me. And that gave me a lot of confidence. And then the second night, I came out to a sea of black, and nobody was smiling because I was wearing the same dress, and nobody was interested. So the next year, from then on, I wear a different dress for every performance because I like to walk on stage and see my colleagues smile at me to see what dress I'm wearing. It gives me confidence, you know.
So aside from learning this concerto, learning the Bartok, you teach and you're playing chamber music all the time. About how many hours do you think you practice every day, most days?
Well, probably 2 hours on a consistent basis, but like we're going to Florence and Rome, my husband and I and our daughters and their partners, in the middle of December, and I'll be gone for 3 weeks, so I won't be bringing that violin.
And is that normal for you to take breaks like that?
Yeah, in fact, this summer, I think the older I get, the more I can do that, actually. Because this past summer, I played 3 different chamber music concerts in Madison, Wisconsin in June, and I left my fiddle in Chicago to have work done on it. And I flew back to Reno. My husband and I packed up, and we flew to Greece, because our oldest daughter lives in Athens, Greece. And so we spent 2 weeks on 2 different islands there, had a blast. Then Gary and I flew back through Chicago, picked up the violin, got back to Reno. I had 3 days to get my little fingers back into shape, because then I had 2 programs in Texas. 3 days after I got back, I had to go play those concerts. And I was fine, because I had done all my work ahead of time, So then when you're away, it seasons in your brain, and then it's much easier when you come back.
Great. So can we open the floor to questions? Yes.
The violin is a J.B. Guadagnini from Milan, and I always tell people I think it's so interesting because Guadagnini lived in 5 different cities. He lived in Turin and Palermo and Milan and Cremona, and I forgot the other one. But anyway, my last name, Sant'Ambrogio, he's the patron saint of Milan. So it's interesting to me that this Guadagnini was made in that same city. And it was my 2nd year in the Cleveland Orchestra, and I knew I needed a better violin. And it was funny, when I bought this violin, I was in the back, the last stand of the 2nd violins of the orchestra. And my principal, Bernie Goldschmidt, who a couple years later I ended up sitting with because I won an audition to sit up there, he said to me, "I heard you got a Guadagnini." I said, "Yeah, I just got it. I'm going to be eating red beans and rice for the next 4.5 years to pay it off." But yeah, and he goes, "Even I don't have a Guadagnini," because he was the principal. And I said, "Well, Bernie, I hope I won't be sitting in the back of the Cleveland Orchestra forever."
Any other questions? Yes.
I think it's totally unfair for you to sound as beautiful as 2 violinists all at once during this piece. It disturbs labor relations in the beginning.
Well, yeah, maybe I should talk to Steve and I could get doubling.
But in any case, how do you make it work? It seems to me that makes it really, really tough, vibrant, vibrato, and to really give equal strength and concentration and beauty to both tones at once, especially when it's so sustained.
Well, I'm glad you thought that's what was happening. I did my best. It's just a lot of practice. I do practice a lot. My mom always remembers that when Gary and I had our daughters when they were younger, I would, put them to bed, and then I would go practice, till midnight often, because that was the only time it was quiet. But I love to practice. I like to perform, but I really prefer sitting in my practice room with a piece of music and figuring out how to phrase it, how to finger it, how to bow it. I just think that's such a cool process.
I think that's rare.
Yeah, and I think when you're young, you don't like it. My father, who's a professional cellist, he had to nag us, bribe us. He had to just nag us to practice. We did. My sister and I, she's 2 years younger. She's a wonderful cellist, and we hated to practice. When you're young, you hate to practice. And when our girls were young, and they were playing piano and then flute and violin, I didn't think it was bad to bribe them. If you play that without stopping, you get those 5 M&Ms. I think it's okay. We get paid for our
the
work.
currency went up since then.
Oh, yeah. Yes, yes. That's right. And every mistake you make is information. Right? But thank you.
Any other questions? Yes. Where do I draw my energy in conducting? I think because there are notes on a page, everyone is only playing one line of their part, and as the conductor, you have to instill all of the interpretation, but also the technicality of sometimes being a police officer. You know, you have to like traffic control, yes, and be able to do all of those things. I think what drives me is my passion to make music. And as a pianist, you know, it's like creating is my passion. I don't know, what about you, Stephanie?
Well, I just love music. You know, I grew up with it, and I can't imagine the world without classical music.
Yeah, I think it's the love of what you do, is a love of what I do.
Are you a conductor? So he's asking about when you're playing double stops with the left hand, how do you keep the bow, you know, evenly distributed between the two strings? Yeah, it just takes practice, you know. But I'll actually confess something. So in the score of the Respighi, it did not indicate ponticello, which means on the bridge. But in the part, it said ponticello in this one section. And I'm supposed to be playing like a drone of a D while I'm playing very up high on the A string, ponticello. So as I said, it wasn't in the score, so perhaps Respighi didn't put that in, but probably the first performer thought that was good and it sounded good. But I, for the life of me, could not produce a good sound, ponticello, on two different strings, especially when you're way up high. So you know what I did? I asked the librarian to cheat, and she put that D, ponticello, in Jay's part. So he was helping me play that double stop. Yes, yes, true confessions. Oh, and D, yeah, but you had to do ponticello, and it's hard to move the bow quickly and keep it evenly next to the bridge. Sometimes it can jump on top over the bridge by mistake, you know? Yes, I am nervous before I perform every time, but mostly for standing up when you're the center of attention. That doesn't go well with my personality, actually. So I have a bunch of mantras that I say, you know, and one of the things I think of is that when she was talking about the metaphor of the puzzle, I try to remind myself, Steph, you're just one piece of this puzzle. Just one, but get your ego out of it, you know. And I also am very spiritually based, and so I basically believe that divine or God is the performer, and I'm just the instrument, because my violin doesn't get nervous, right? So then that helps me feel like, you know, just let it go. Try to be a conduit of beauty and perfection, and get the ego out of it.
Yes.
I don't think you saw that today. Oh, they just write the word, ponticello, which is in Italian, near the bridge. No, you never play on the left side of the bridge. Yeah. No, but there's a lot of variety between, you know, depending on how close you are to the bridge, and then there's the fingerboard. We call that the sounding point. So for every bit of weight or speed or pressure or speed or amount of bow, there is an optimal sounding point between the bridge and that fingerboard where you want to play. It's better to, yeah, the closer you are to the bridge, the bigger the sound. So when you're playing a soloist, you want to try to be close. Yeah.
Wow, okay, the question was, can I talk about the difficulty of conducting the Bartok Concerto for Orchestra? Well, it's a piece that I've been studying for, I don't know, maybe 15 years, almost. As long as I've been conducting. I remember conducting it in conducting class at Peabody with Gustav Meyer. And I also covered it in Dallas with Jaap van Zweden and wrote down all of his notes in it. It is very tricky in that all the mixed meter, all of the tempo changes like you were saying, all of the colors, you know, it's like, it's one of the most difficult pieces to conduct. Every movement has something that's tricky. And you have to be there for the musicians, but you also have to make music, and you also, the winds are and the brass are in a totally different beat, that are the melodies. The melody is never on the downbeat, and when it is, it's very important, you know? There's so much to describe about how difficult it is. It is like the puzzle. It's very intricate. And every time I study it, I discover something new. And I hear something new. And so I think, you know, one of your students was saying it was on her bucket list. She'd never played it. There were some musicians also in the winds and brass who had never played it, but have always wanted to learn it. It's on every audition of every instrument, basically. The viola solos, the low strings. I remember in Dallas, Jaap had a sectional for just the basses because he wanted the right sound, you know, in the beginning of the fourth movement. And so anyway, it's just very, very intricate.
But it didn't seem hard for you. That's for sure.
It takes hours and hours and hours of practice. Just, you know, just envisioning all of it and just really, you know, I'm literally counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and doing a different pattern with my hand, and you know, yeah, it's just very, very tricky. So it's something you don't want to learn a week before, and you don't want to, you know, but there was a story here, a legendary story in Fresno Philharmonic, that the conductor, I think it was 1984, I can't remember who it was, but John Morris was here, he was concertmaster at the time, and he told me this story last night. He said the conductor was very, you know, frail and actually fell down before the concert, and the principal trombone came up on stage very last minute and conducted the entire concerto for orchestra. And apparently you got a great review. So, I mean, I can't imagine just stepping on the podium and doing that, being hopefully they found a principal trombone to play the part, but that's just pretty incredible, yes. You know, this orchestra and a lot of orchestras now, it's quite remarkable that a regional orchestra can really put this Bartok in its repertoire in 4 rehearsals. Really, 3 rehearsals. And so often I'm teaching them, but doing it with them, you know, because they're able to play the notes. It's just lining them up in that fugal section that's very, very difficult, very tricky. And so you have to listen to the inner beats, and you have to show those inner beats without, you know, showing every single beat. So it's very complex. It's a way of listening and working with them. But I thought, you all. Yes, that's right. So I'm also mentoring a young conductor. She's here, Gracie. And she came to all the rehearsals. So that's how you really start to absorb the score and the music, and it's just really listening to how it comes together, because that is very, very difficult.
Is there a way that you annotate the score? Without harmonic analysis?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So a lot of studying. Yes. Yes. Any other questions? Yes.
Well, I did dance as a child, but I do like to move, and I feel that especially when you're sitting in that chair, it helps if you're physically, cueing and stuff, because when you're in the back, I know because I sat in the back for a long time, and it's hard to play with the front of the section, so I think it's important to physically move. And it's funny, I just retired from a festival in Ohio that I did for 15 years, and we would do classicals, but we'd also do like pop stuff on the weekends, outdoor things. And I mean, I really love the beat. I don't listen to rock music often, but when I'm playing that kind of stuff, I feel like I can't really help myself. I'm like doing this, and I said to Cal, I said, is it annoying to the other musicians that I'm doing this? No, it's cool. So, okay, that's what I'm gonna do.
So I have one last question for you. Your student was saying the Bartok Concerto for Orchestra was her bucket list piece. She was
Desert Island.
Oh, Desert Island
Desert.
piece. And then she was so excited and thrilled to play. So what is your Desert Island piece? It could be anything, orchestral, but something that you maybe have played or want to play.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's so much great music.
How about the top three?
Okay. Well, I love the Brahms Violin Concerto. I've never played that with orchestra, and I'm not going to play that with orchestra at this point in my life. And I love, it's hard, you can't say it. It's like, which children do you like the best, I mean, really, I can't make that, I can't.
Okay, so.
What about you? Do you have a Desert Island piece?
That's a good question. It varies, I think Bartok this is one. The other one is Bartok's Miraculous Mandarin. Is something I really, really want to conduct someday. But okay, so let's talk about maybe your travels, because Stephanie travels quite a lot. And
yes, we're gonna go to Florence and Rome. I'm really excited. Florence, just my husband and me and our oldest daughter Bella, who's flying over from Athens, and then her partner's coming. He's a coach for a soccer team, so he can't get off much time. So he has 3 nights with us. And then our youngest daughter is in New York City, and she's coming with her partner. And we're going to be in Rome for a week, eating and...
So do you think Italy is your most favorite destination?
I do love Italy, but...
is there
and I've never been to... I've been to Florence, but I've never been to Rome. So I love all the European countries, Yeah, so hopefully I'll do more of that.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much.
Thank you for asking good questions.
We'll see you next time. Thank you.